Hello, everyone, and welcome to my very hello, everyone, and welcome to my very first official live stream. And yeah, I know I'm not exactly the most efficient YouTuber, but I'm striving towards it. And yeah, now reflecting on that, what has this YouTube channel been before, and what is it now? Like, I used to do, like, when I first started this, like, nearly 10 years ago, I did, like, these gameplay videos, and now here I am editing videos with AMVs, LMAVs, and character co-narratives and essays, and yeah, it's been a long time. It's been a very long time to get here, like, with now around nearly a quarter, actually past a quarter million, like 700,000 views to my name, and going from, like, I never even thought this channel would be that successful, but here it is, like, with all that viewership. And I'm being modest. It is a very hit or miss YouTube channel. It isn't, and none of you are even watching right now. And if you are, yeah, and when you will watch it, it most likely will not be right now. It will possibly later, possibly hell after this entire thing is recorded. But it has been a very interesting journey. So, and I have not been the most, like, attentive YouTuber with my stuff. That's probably why none of you are watching this right now. So I just, it's very difficult to make something a channel and get all these viewership and not have such a loyal following, because you're not giving that much attention, because you don't know what you're doing a bit. You're a little scatterbrain with your audience. And that's kind of a part of how I came back was, of course, from the pandemic and all. It from a very scatterbrained position. So it's not been the easiest thing to get over, but it's been very motivating to go onward and to get this amount of attention that I did. And so yeah, it's been crazy. It's been so just, yeah, God, no one's gonna watch this right now, so what am I doing? I just, like, no one's, but if you are, it's, like, no one's watching this. No one. And I mean no one. No one at all. No one. No, because no one cares about my channel. No one. And I think you guys would. Whoever, whatever, you don't, you may or not exist. It's just, like, just, I don't know what to say, because I would like to say something, but just no one would want to listen to it, because no one is listening to it right now. So I really am a hit or miss YouTuber, like, and I just would like that to turn around, like it to change. I like, and I want it to be better. And I don't see the point of making a live stream when no one would watch it. Why not just make it not live? Just if you would all watch it afterwards. So, what do I want to talk about? That's not my channel. I don't know. I mean, I do know. It just I don't know if you guys would want to hear it. And if you would, that would be great. That'd be really great. So, and also especially with my friends Callum and Malika, who actually get attention and have loyal, dedicated fan bases, and I don't, because I don't know how to get that loyalty. I only know how to get attention. And I just it's I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why I'm doing this. You're not even watching. I don't know. I don't know. And until hey, Calm. No one. You're the only one here. You're the only one here. I'm sorry. Yeah. You're the only one here. It's no one else. It's just me and you, bud. And this whole video has been about. Yeah, but I have not barely talked about anything. I've been just waiting for someone to come on. And that someone is you. And no one else. And, I hope you win. I hope you try. I hope, yeah. I hope other people would. But I don't think it's going to work. Because no one cares. No one will care. Except you. I don't think no one will ever care. If I'm being honest. Oh, someone else is on. All right. Who is on here? And what would you like to ask? Yeah. And it's gone. I can't keep up the momentum. I can't keep up the optimism because. All right. All right, so about Homer, and this is a bit off topic, but I have talked about Nietzschean philosophy, and I've talked about other things, and I have not talked really about the Greek philosophy or Greek Iliad, but there is, if we are talking about the wokes, which is like The Boy Who Cried Wolf, but one of the predators is Samuel Butler, who translated the Iliad and Odyssey and thought Homer was a woman. A woman. A woman, because he interpreted the feminine influence in that story and thought it was, and put it to his own biases instead of, but really we don't know who or what gender Homer was because there's no physical evidence. Yeah. So there's no physical evidence. So Cal, I'm trying. No one's gonna want to watch this. Let's be real. Like, no one's gonna watch this. Just you and me, buddy. Every time someone comes in, they always come out. Really? Does anyone watch your live streams, like rewatch them, or they just watch your live streams while they're live? Yeah, but I don't. I mean, I suppose it just feels so depressing. No one's coming in. I feels if you were in the beginning of it, and if you were like in the first 5 minutes or first, then it is that depressing how like no one's there. It's like sad and pathetic. Like how I'm just a one trick pony. I don't. I only make videos for people who don't actually care about my channel. And you're the only one. Most likely. You're the only one, and I'm that pessimistic. Because I know how harsh it can be. It can be that harsh. And I want to end this stream. I want to. I don't want to do this. It's too humiliating. I, mm-hmm. Because I keep messing up, and then they're gonna go away. They'll move away. All right. Just I suppose I could talk about more about my history of my channel. Like, it did come again with Stardust, like the app, like that Nostalgia Critic introduced to everyone, and that inevitably gave me motivation towards improving my YouTube channel. And I I yeah, thanks, Cal. Thanks. Yeah, does anyone care about this? I'm sorry, I'm losing it. I am losing it. I'm losing it. I don't even see you on available on, but you're still on. Mhm. Yeah, and they only care about you. They don't care about me. They only care about you. Jarf, thank you. Finally. All right. Good. We got other people. All right, Jarf. So, thanks for helping my self-esteem. Which, all right. So it's not easy to start out with gameplays and nearly going for 10 years and coming to YouTube essays and AMVs, LMAVs, and I am propping this channel up for my story, Trade of Thousand Galaxies, but I think okay, I'll tell Jarf. I'll tell you what I'll tell you what I told Callum, that that Homer, the guy who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. There was this one translator, Samuel Butler. It was basically like Matt Groening, and he thought that Homer was a woman, and a genuine woman who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, and it was due to his own biases and his own progressive nature that he made a shrewd like the authoress of the Odyssey, is quite funny. And yeah, no, I can't. Samuel Butler, look him up. And I know that I had not done anything Greek yet, or I have done a little Nietzsche, but that's more German than is Greek, and that doesn't. But it is. I've done philosophy on this channel. I've done the Living as Herd of Devils, the Attack on Titan thing, which is one of my more flawed and shrewd, but a little bit more concise, written scripts. It was definitely, but I definitely mastered at essayists. But I would say my best written essay was the Tron Uprising animation one, where how Tron Uprising actually genuinely predated Spider-Verse. It made way for it. The guy who worked on the head animation artist was basically the pathway for Spider-Verse and that whole art style that we're all craving right now. And that did not get 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 views, but did get a modest 500 views. Or they just, again, I really don't have that solid of a plan to do with my YouTube channel. I'm that hit or miss. It's because I have been, this YouTube channel was born out of insecurity, and it still remains in insecurity. Yeah, it's the shorts, but they only want instant gratification, and then they'll forget about me in a day. That's also what I always feared sometimes. But commenters do have nice things to say about me, but it's just I always have these spontaneous ideas that don't always correlate. But I do manage to execute them well enough, like my Tron Uprising again, and also like the Star Wars: The Clone Wars political tragedy, which I did at the time was watching JJ plagiarisms, and I know that guy. He of course one of many YouTubers that are hated by a lot of people, but I call him the Stilgar of Star Wars because he is so dogmatic on his belief that George Lucas and the EU are inseparable, that that George Lucas like approved of everything in the EU. That I mean, not everything, of course. There's the non-canon stuff, but he's so convinced that the old Knights of the Old Republic is in George Lucas's mind, was approved by him, which I think of George Lucas as brilliant but lazy, like Doc Ock. I even made that video back then with Shrewd also about criticizing George Lucas because I know but in the creative management, I mean, there's always a lot of things to hate about Lucas, but the creative management is what I hate the most. It's how lazy he was with his universe. I mean, what is Star Wars? Even before Disney Star Wars, what is Star Wars at this point? What is it? Is it like could he it would be nice if he had a visual goal for it even when he had Lucasfilm before he sold it to Disney. It would be nice that he would have, if he was like Tolkien, like J.R. Tolkien, who wrote the Silmarillion before he even wrote the Lord of the Rings, mind you. He wrote it all out, and yeah, and that's why I respect the hell out of people like Tolkien more than Lucas, because those guys like they know it from the start, and they know and like that's why Lord of the Rings is one of many stories in his legendarium. And but George Lucas, he only said that there was no Sith Empire that was for tens of thousand years. He only said there was one Sith Empire. It was founded by Darth Bane. And he was not in a lineage of other Sith before him. He was the first Sith in Lucas's mind. That's why the rule of two. But Joe Lucas is so vague. That's so vague. I'll get to that. Lucas is so vague that is why he's so left up to the interpretation, and that's where I find the laziness in his creative management. So it's not that, of course, that Lucas is a brilliant genius. I'm not denying that, but you have to have a love. It's a tough love with this. So with Tolkien and Lucas, with Jungian archetypes, I've also dabbled into Nietzsche. I guess Jung. I haven't made. I'm try. I tried to make videos on young essayists, but I didn't manage to do it. But I guess I'll with with of course with Frodo and Luke Skywalker, who represents the Jungian archetypes of the everyman or the hero of both, which is the most appealing, and they have the shadow archetypes of the no man and the villain, which represents Gollum and Vader, the shadow archetypes of, yeah, and more specifically Vader as the villain and Gollum as the no man, but I think actually that's more the Jackson version, because ever since Star Wars, every adaptation, and I mean every, even Dune, was modeled after Star Wars. Every all archetypically structured after Star Wars. Even if you read The Lord of the Rings in Dune, it is more Lord of the Rings is marginally different, but Dune's a bit less because we're all in that post Star Wars craze, like where we all a bit hate Star Wars. But Tolkien more sense because his is more distinct from his Jackson counterpart. With Frodo in the book is, and especially I think the Lord of the Rings in 1978 or 70, which funny enough came after Star Wars. Yeah, that it was more in line with the Tolkien version. Frodo was more in command. He was more in charge. Hell, when that scene from in Lord of the Rings where like Arwen, like who by the way did absolutely nothing basically in the original book, and that when she was riding Frodo to safety, it was actually Frodo himself who was riding himself to safety, and he was fighting it back against the Nazgul. And that actually makes him a little more badass. Like, it makes him more tough in control. And I think we could definitely say the same about Aragorn, who also, by the way, is definitely that. It's also with I definitely stated that I dislike Avatar's Airbender, but I have a Salieri, like an Amadeus relationship with it, where I do enamor it a bit, the story, or a bit, some of it, but more the visuals and the ideas of the elements and the how they do with it. I do enamored by it, but everything else I don't, especially with Jet. Man, did they screw him over. They gave him a full redemption arc. A redemption arc. He was a terrorist basically. And then they had the chance where he could not be a terrorist. He helped them find Appa. And then when he was dead or whatever under the other Lake Loud guy, that and this total jumping the shark episode where they had that play, which breaks all conventional rules of storytelling. Your character's enemy is not supposed to know the story. I don't care how novel the idea is. It breaks conventions. You are now. It's also back to Tolkien. You are now the illusion. The spell is broken, and you're now are watching with the characters, and that is my problem with this. The characters are so real because you're trying to escape into the characters, so you don't even enamor the fiction itself. It is that postmodern where you can't enjoy the story as a work of art in itself because it has to have the audiences, a surrogate for the audience. It has to have that personal input. I mean, Deadpool is an exception because he in himself is a mummus. He is probably the incarnation of postmodernity, the incarnation of that. He doesn't have his own story. He doesn't take himself seriously at all. And he's mostly centered around people who do take themselves seriously. Avatar Airbender is not that kind of thing. It's trying to take itself seriously. And I made this video also about kid shows trying to be adult. I still somewhat believe that to an extent. It's not that kid shows can't be great for kids. Hell, the part where in Static Shock where that Jimmy No episode was fantastic. It's great for kids to know how to deal with school shootings or something controversial like that. But it's kind of the problem where you kind of have this playful tongue-in-cheek part. That's what Avatar Seven really knocks your nerves off. That it really is tongue-in-cheek with its seriousness. Like, I mean, with the first 3 episodes, when Aang finds out about, his master Kyoto dead, it would be nice if right after that we got that that whole like storm episode, but we had to wait episodes of filler in order to get to that, where you kind of like it's really the member berries talking, the member berries, yeah, and it's trying to not criticize it because it's not above criticism. And that's also what it I remember nostalgia critic Doug Walker talking about how Avatar Airbender the second season was like The Empire Strikes Back. Can you see how derivative it's relying on your love for Star Wars? That's why I don't see it. I see it as a lesser version of Star Wars, a lesser version that it's Avatar Airbender has great stuff in it. It's just not it does have amazing ideas in it. It has incredible talent. It has Mako, but I just it's a bit annoying to me. It would be nice if it were take itself more seriously, but I get that's more Nickelodeon being like the anchor to their chain, the ball and chain. But it would be nice, but I don't think that Nickelodeon is the entire thing because I think that it's easy for an author or a story to have emotional baggage. And but it can be a little on the nose when the audience has emotional baggage too that it goes on to the show. It would be nice to watch a show without any of that, where it's taken seriously. And I mean, there can be kid shows, great kid shows that can do that. I think Batman the Animated Series, which, yeah, it inspired from, is one of those. It definitely, and I would say other kid shows, yeah, Samurai Jack. Hell, that is basically not a kid show anymore. That's an adult show. That is full TV 14. And it also has Mako again. And but I will say this about Avatar's Airbender. It is definitely better than Hazbin Hotel. Because Avatar has Mako, it has ethics, it has grounding morals, at least some bit of integrity. It has that. I give it that. This is me being generous. Of all my bitching and moaning about it, this is me being generous. But Hazbin Hotel has none of this. It only has yapping and yapping about it, but it doesn't have it, because it completely goes it's completely into the Deadpool. It's completely mixed between that sincerity and irony, and more because it's relying on stuff like Invader Zim, which is also Nickelodeon, which I hate that show with every fiber of my being, because it relies on that like irony mentality, that not sincerity, but with Hazbin Hotel really rubs off the same way, but it's not that Hazbin Hotel. It's definitely an inspiring story. I also give Hazbin Hotel its credence, that the story of an author, and an author getting its their passion project to Amazon of all people, Amazon of all companies, that it is great to have that passion and also she is way more successful than me. I give it that. Her YouTube channel before I am a homeless bum compared to her, with how many viewerships and how loyal a fan base she had before I even had my YouTube channel, nor my story, my Trade 1,000 Galaxies. Yeah, she had that. I don't. Yeah, I know. And there's also Final Space. There's also other, but I'm just saying that she is probably one of the inspirations, because her story is, yeah, is it's, I mean, yes, Final Space is most likely. I've definitely seen episodes of it. I have not fully done it, but and it's sad that Final Space did get canceled, and TBS completely run it over. Warner Bros. Completely run it over as a write off and all that, which sucks for them. But Hazbin Hotel got a full season and didn't get a write off. It is loved and enamored by an entire, like Avatar's Airbender. It's loved. It is beloved. But Avatar's Airbender is more beloved and has much less traction. But with Vipsy Pop, who definitely went into it, because maybe I can apply this Jungian thinking to Vipsy Pop, where, especially back to Batman animated series, I consider Vipsy Pop to be like Harley Quinn. I mean, her, not just the character Charlie, but Vipsy Pop herself is, and she even admitted she was inspired directly off of the Batman the animated series. And she, on her Twitter, when Joker the 2019 film came out, she admitted that it didn't have Mark Hamill in it. To know that that is her pudding. She knew she pretty much modeled off some of her identity off of that. So it is quite funny about how that, and I do find it hilarious about how she kind of embraces the shadow. She embraces that part of it, and she loves it, blindly loving it. Blindly loving the archetype of the base in the virtueless. And I would say that this is where I can get into some philosophy with, of course, I've definitely read the Nick and McKinney ethics with virtue, and I can tell you that Hazbin Hotel basically breaks all the virtues and gives in all the vices. But the thing about it, it tries to have cake and eat too, yet trying to reconcile with the virtues. because even they know that virtue does matter. Virtue it matters. Virtue cannot be rid of, even, but that requires responsibility and accountability. But because I think with looking at Bitsy Pop and her channel, she definitely has the aspect where she really is this pixie dream girl, but incarnated into a woman, and like that. mm, I mean, I definitely have seen her podcast. She definitely is against the criticism of, the cynicism against story, and I do enamor that. Yeah, but it kind of sucks where she is ironically given into that kind of thing when, because she, with her ideas and her stories, she doesn't really have that anchor of discipline. Because I mean, she has discipline when it comes to drawing, but that is a different entire story from writing a script. And I think that, at least me, I've seen with my essays that I know how to write a script. Even if some of my worser scripts, or like worser stuff, I definitely have improved with my essays, and I could definitely direct. I can make a great edit. I can make a fantastic edit. Um, and she can make great drawings. She can make great works of art, but it kind of gets detracted. It's kind of like the story of, like, when person works for something and then they realize they don't have it in them, but they have such a passion in them, and that's where Hazbin Hotel has that passion. It just would be nice if there was some discipline, and I don't see that. I've definitely seen like a good portion enough to know it could be better. It could if it didn't, like I said, if it doesn't have some emotional baggage to it. But I digress. So what else can I talk about? So hmm. So I think I can talk back about Tolkien. Let's something less controversial. Yeah, I was talking about, like, comparing like Jungian archetypes to Frodo and Aragorn, and I think I did also make my Amadeus like style Lord of the Rings video with, the Confutates, like, you know um with Mozart's music on in LMV. I call live action music video, and I it really that man Tolkien, especially with Rings of Power, deserves a requiem. And oh yeah, here we go into Rings of Power. I think that with Aragorn's ancestors, both Elendil and Isildur, at least Elendil got the latter half of the stick. I mean, the actor's great. I would definitely see him in a proper script, in a proper story. I would see him as the same guy who would be in the prologue to Lord of the Rings and the Fellowship of the Ring, as the guy who went against Sauron and got killed. But can I say the same for Isildur, his son? Can I say the same? No. I can only say shame on you for making the guy who, in the original lore, who basically, I mean, yeah, how schizophrenic this show is. It, like, also with As Verason, to look like Karl Marx. I think, at least with Tolkien, while he's spinning his grave, he would find that hilarious. That As Verason, who is a villain, who is a corrupted bureaucrat, but that was by you would find at least that and very amusing. Yes, it is very amusing. But that Isildur in the lore, in the Silmarillion, the guy who was who was one of the faithfuls, who took the white tree that is on my banner, that he took a seed from it. He took that was from Numenor, and this very tree that was in The very tree that was in that was in the Rings of Power, and it took the seed from it, and he brought it to Gondor, where it became the white tree that is you see in the films. And there's so much attention to detail that Tolkien, that I enamor him for. I love him for that he put into his books, his world, and everything that I can only pale in comparison when it comes to my story. I can pale in comparison. I can only be like a lesser man. Like it's like the Saruman. You are but a lesser man, born from lesser men. Yeah, and that is where I think, but at least I'm mightier and greater than Rings of Power people who says that. Remember, there's no canon to Tolkien, and also back to the canon. I give credence to George Lucas, even though I really don't like his creative management. He definitely had an attention and a passion for his project until he sold it off to Disney and realized he made a huge mistake. The quote, I made a huge mistake. Yeah, so it's so yeah, it's that there's no continuity. And Star Wars is going for the same bullshit too. That there's no continuity, no canon, no defining thing, no one universal defining thing. And hell, there's no endings anymore. Everything has to go on forever. But that's kind of the point of myths. They go on forever on their own. That's kind of the anti-myth, the opposite of the myth, where they go on forever yet they die out easily. That's why the Iliad and the Odysseys don't have sequels and continuously franchises. That's why you don't see Odysseus or Hercules or Horatius or Orpheus or Achilles all in multiple franchises, and you don't see them in today because they go on forever. They represent the fire that which never dies, burning forever. They represent the eternal in us. They are here to ennoble us, the same as you and His Majesty. And I was calling that from Amadeus. So that is what especially modern writing is in that pitfall. But I think with Dune, it is definitely better than all this. But something's lost with Dune. Like, it's not Lord of the Rings. There's something lost, especially when you watch the special features of Dune, both of them, that there are only so little. Like, there are 26 hours of featurettes in the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. And so far in 2 films, there's probably 2 or 3 hours at best. And I mean, there's great production value. There's phenomenal. You see on the film. It's just that you don't show any of that. It's because everything's digital, everything's streaming. There's even Inside Out 2, which is direct to streaming. I call it DTS film. And that's why Soul, who deserves far better, who deserves to be a theatrical release film, where Inside Out 2 deserves to be only on Disney Plus. It should be the other way around. It should be Soul making being the number 1 film of this year or of 2020. It should be Soul, not Inside Out. And it would, yeah, it did make it to cinemas. It made cinemas this year, but it didn't. I bet it wouldn't make that big of a box office that Inside Out made. It didn't make nearly that much money. And speaking of other box office, with Deadpool and Wolverine, with me and Anomaly Inc., we both have the same love-hate relationship that before us, Nostalgia Critic and Angry Joe, both had for Batman and Superman, Dawn of Justice. We saw a good X-Men film with the proper studio. What? I thought you liked it. No, kinda. Well, you didn't like it? No, kinda. So then what was the problem? We've been waiting years to see Wolverine on the big screen in his original comic book accurate suit. What we did is so Marvel. And that's what Marvel used to be, actually, the counterpoint to DC's inaccuracies. And we thought the tables would turn with Joker and their spin-offs, but now they're both in the same pool of what the fuck is going on? Like, what? Yeah, like they're both in that limbo state. Like, what are you guys even more? Like, and that they're bringing back Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. And I swore off that I would not make any videos about Marvel. And I'm still no more Marvel. And I'm making no Disney Star Wars videos either. But because, funny enough, that both Marvel, the MCU, and Disney Star Wars are both used to be Paramount and 20th Century Fox, but both got moved to Disney. So in a way, not to make videos about them, but I am talking about it, and in a very conversational rant in a way, in a live stream or whatever. So, oh god, yeah, and the Red Hulk, my god, like it's just I think it really did hit its apex with Daredevil Netflix in season 3 and Avengers Infinity War. And it never will get that back. It will never. It's trying Honest Trails once said that the MCU is like a rock star, and then phase 4 is like it's puking in the gutter, and then phase 5 is like everything went wrong, and then succumbing to a midlife crisis. And speaking of Paramount, even if they don't have the MCU, they have Transformers 1, they have Top Gun Maverick and Sonic. Like, and man, like Paramount, out of like the rest of all the studios, big studios, is probably the most kinder ones. Like, especially with the Transformers fan, fan base. I mean, I have seen so much prequel hate, sequel hate, or whatever, but with the Transformers fan base, they're probably the most wholesome fan base ever. That they can say, one of my videos, that you can say that Bayformers getting some like on that anime, like with Studio Trigger making that whole AMV with all the Transformers and this whole ensemble with every niche to mainstream Transformer all in the same continuity, like they're in an alternate universe. But even they say that the Bayformers get some representation without any irony or any hate or spite. That is wholesome. That is genuinely wholesome. So I am so glad that at least one sci-fi fantasy franchise is more wholesome than the other. That yeah, and that is, and also with Sonic. That it imagine Knuckles, Tails, and Shadow all having the first Sonic like trailer like look to them. Imagine that. Imagine how horrible that would have all been. They could have gone the Star Wars route. They could have gone the Marvel route and say, fuck you. No, we're gonna keep this like this and spite you and give you horrible shit. We're gonna go full like Disney remake on you and like keep you in like uncanny valley like characters and all this horrifying rendition of Yogi Bear or Alvin and the Chipmunks. But they didn't. They listened to their fans. They listened to the audiences. They listened. They actually improved on it. They actually improved on it. And I think that is also with Transformers 1, also with the marketing. Yeah, I even heard from like cell specs that the marketing, even with My Little Pony or with with any like Hasbro, is not good. But because having Transformers 1 be a buddy comedy and yet somewhat of a drama origin story, interesting choice. That's how I feel with how Doug Walker even said that for the Prince of Egypt. In a lot of way, Transformers 1 is a lot like the Prince of Egypt. They both have this unorthodox way of telling a story that is by paragons of like Moses or Optimus, or both, that some archetype, and then putting them into the everyman position and more relatable and more. Yeah, because if you definitely read the Old Testament or watch the original like Ten Commandments film, then you would definitely see like the Moses like the everyman. No, the powerful Ubermensch, the badass who the paragon. And that's also what Optimus is like in the Transformers Prime verse also. He's very this archetypical like badass like paragon of the warrior, the Superman. But Orion Pax and also Moses in The Prince of Egypt, they're very much, especially where they find out that they were in a corrupted world where they were nearly screwed over and point to the point of extinction. Like I'm with Moses and the babies drowning, and also with the Cybertronians basically going slowly extinct by the Quintessons. And both Orion Pax and Moses do come from the everyman and also with Chris Hemsworth and Val Kilmer, like both in Top Gun Maverick and Thor. And I'm a bit about that. That's why I think even with Chris Hemsworth, he is no Peter Cullen. He is no. I love Peter Cullen. I always love Peter Cullen, but he is no Peter Cullen. But he definitely is Thor. And Thor has a similar archetypical version to Optimus Prime. But except he's not the Everman, he was more the boastful, like prideful person who had to be humbled. This is more like the Everyman Joe who becomes the archetypical hero in Optimus Prime. Which that's why it is so nice to see Chris Hemsworth return to this kind of thing. Because ever since Love and Thunder, and ever since even like Avengers Endgame, where it really started to show, like him playing Fortnite and also Love and Thunder, where he's basically like some distorted version of himself, or like that he had to get back to his prime version, and the damage, like, and also with that whole like rendition of like in Ragnarok with uh, like, man, Taika Waititi, you really don't know how to make a serious story now, do you? That's why kind of back to the whole thing. That's why I like Thor: The Dark World a bit in aspects, especially with Loki and Thor's relationship. With how that was the heart of that story, and it was definitely, and even I think Taika Waititi definitely knew this. That's why it took a more comedic turn in Ragnarok. It, and that's why it's funny enough that Hemsworth would go into the very similar role with Optimus Prime, where it's mixing a bit of that Taika Waititi with that seriousness and dark world into a bit of a synthesis in the role of Orion Pax, which and him become Optimus Prime. So that's where he's definitely one of the better alternatives. Definitely the best alternative to Peter Cullen. He's a really good one. And the D16 Megatron, yeah, it has that Loki or Ramesses like vibe. Like, okay, more Starscream is Loki because, well, of course, because Starscream is more the trickster, more the one who wants to be in charge, but doesn't actually be in charge, and always has to come to be. That's where Mega D16 is more like or D16 Megatron is more like Ramesses, who accept the difference between Ramesses and Megatron is that one was a part of the hierarchy that was the oppressors, and the one was the other way around, where had to literally rip the oppressor patsy opportunist that was Sentinel Prime in half, and then declare himself ruler of all Cybertron, and then have to be brought down by Optimus Prime now. And it's also interesting with how Transformers 1 treats the world lore, because I think with the Bayformers, they only gave us fragments of that kind of lore. but now we know Primus. We now know that sense of history and lore that this franchise actually has, and this actually could be better in a sequel. It could be phenomenally. It could improve upon like the fat that was the buddy comedy thing, which is that gives it the heart. Also, it's the paradoxical where it makes it a little uncanny with how comedy it is, buddy is, but it also gives the heart of the relationship between, because when you do see Optimus and Megatron and you see back to their original forms, Orion Pax and D16, that they did have that first reunion, you do feel a little something. You feel that, ooh, these guys are never, or they're gone. Their relationship is dead. Yeah. And that is definitely why it's, but now that the anchor that was the comedy aspect is off of it, they can definitely go somewhere in the future with this. And I don't want to spoil anything for Transformers Prime, but if you want to see that relationship in a nutshell done to a paragon, but a very nuanced paragon, like sort of way, go watch Transformers Prime. Watch like the entirety to, because that's definitely where I grew up with it, along with the Bayformers, which, funny enough, it was very weird growing up with, you know, the Bayformers' absolutely vulgar nature, along with um Transformers Prime's more subdued, and yeah. That's kind of, even if Prime is not nearly as like robust or like Fantastical's Outhouse Airbender, I would say it's a bit more subtle. That's kind of why I would prefer that over Avatar, but I digress. It's the matter of how your childhood, of course, impacts your adulthood. And so about what about Top Gun Maverick? Yeah, that it's I don't have that much to say about like it, except for at least it did. I could definitely say that it did give some strive to box office after the pandemic, because it definitely gave a strive that yes, movies can make money, and they can make money. And 2023, I felt like was the one last hurrah as a whole film, because that last year was like so much films are making money, and so much, like, there was a Barbenheimer phenomenon. There was so much of that. It felt like the culture was back on its feet again. Of course, there were the crap, but it definitely, especially with the Barbenheimer like phenomenon, it had that finesse to it that gave the culture back its feet. So, and now here we're in 2024, where it's basically the hangover, like, of the drunken feast that was, and that's why there's not that, it's not that there aren't good films. It's just that especially with how the culture, it's less memes than it was the Barbenheimer phenomenon. It's much less of an impact. And that's kind of, yeah, there's also some videos say that the culture is eating itself, that it's like the Ouroboros and the the snail the snake that eats its own head, that eats its own tail, that eats its own tail. And yeah, it is heading, and it's been talked about before that Nostalgic Rick even said that there was a dark, dark, dark period of hit where movies were expected to suck, and even Quentin Tarantino has commented on this, that there will be dark times, but there will be inevitably be great stuff to come after it. Or to quote, Harvey Dent, "The night is dark just before the dawn." Mm, so yeah. So I think that for my first live stream, I think that 1 hour is definitely a good enough start for, so I think I will definitely be ending this. But before I go, some last thoughts. I will definitely be returning in December with more stuff. I mean, well, I have some stuff probably this month, but I will definitely return with an essay. I will And definitely I'll also have some out of context stuff. I'll have it's and it's very good that I'm definitely getting more traction with all the views I've gotten lately. I've done the Wild Robot, AMV, and also Transformers 1 short, and also the Arcane, which also I'll most likely do next month. All right. Thank you for whoever has been watching. I know Callum for being a part of my first official live stream, and I will definitely see you.